A warm welcome from CXOTV.news, a flagship brand under Tech Plus Media Group. My name is Anand Sharma from Tech Plus Media. Today we bring a very interesting topic as to how marketing has evolved over the period. Key items we plan to cover today are as follows: current marketing practices, evolution of marketing since the pandemic onslaught started, future of marketing office, 4 Ps and beyond, and technology interventions that can be brought by the CMO office. We have an eminent panel today. Hey Arijit, let me start with you. I'll request you to introduce yourself, please.
I am basically an engineer who moved into business. So worked with various IT companies and engineering firms, and later on started with my startup in area of education, as well as I am involved in another business which is called Czentrix. And Czentrix is basically into the customer experience space. So we provide product and services which very much touches the customer experience every day. So I'm here to express my views, my experience, and share from others how is this marketing evolving with time.
Thank you, Arijit. Hey Dhaval, may I request you to introduce yourself, please?
I have been in the digital marketing domain for the past almost 13 plus years. I've evolved quite a bit, having started off as a hardcore HTML programmer, into someone who's quite excited and keen to understand consumer behavior. Thankfully, I've been able to work with a lot of organizations, look at go-to-market strategy, in a digital-first world, I would say, right? I think we are living in interesting times, and my conversations have changed quite a bit from, talking about how digital channels can help you grow your business to, how you need to think about your business in a digital-first environment.
Hey Harsha.
My name is Harsha Bennur. I'm based out of Bangalore. Started my career primarily as a sales guy, but most of my career now I've been into marketing. It's been a good transition. Literally started from a door-to-door sales model, and now we sit in front of a screen and we're able to impact millions of dollars of pipeline or revenue. So it's been an interesting journey over the past 15 to 17 years for me.
Thank you so much, Harsha. We attempt to open the discussion today as to how marketing has evolved over a period of time, what steps a marketer must take to be in the league of the fittest or ensure survival. It is part of evolution, and how to grow from wherever we are, how far technology interventions can take us on our growth trajectory. Dhaval, can you share the broad macro picture of business, of where do we stand in current times?
From the conversations I've been having, as a consultant, I do a lot of independent consulting. I mentor startups. I've invested in some. I can see a sea change in the way people are thinking about business and, rethinking about how they have been doing this. And, I have actually noted down a few examples. I would like to talk about a couple of them, right? Let's be very, very cognizant of the fact that business has changed, right? Now, while, it may not seem to be something tangible and something that you can physically, relate with if you are specifically working in the IT and ITES sector, the provisioning of services has changed. The way customer touchpoints are being captured has changed, right? The way people are buying things has changed. People aren't traveling anymore as they used to. And I think it's safe to say that this is probably going to stay here for much longer than we anticipated, right? And in the last 3 weeks, I would say 2 months rather, I have spoken to a couple of businesses, and I was speaking to a baby retail company, a company that basically sells healthcare products and baby care products and mother care products, which has a large chain across India. Which overnight built an e-commerce shop, right? And I'm talking about a brick and mortar company, very traditionally driven, very traditional processes, offline rewards programs, suddenly going online, right? Because Amazon, completely shuttered, right? And these guys were basically trying to sell through Amazon. They couldn't. So it became super important for them to actually have a market front online. And this is just one of the companies I'm talking about. I've seen, I've spoken to another company which is in the, e-commerce space in basic FMCG goods, I've spoken to an edtech startup which is now looking to go, online only instead of online plus offline, right? So there are edtech startups which are offline and online modules, and now they are thinking, let's just go online. So people are changing, and I'm not just talking about the tech startups, or I'm not talking about the larger players. I'm talking about even local guys. I'm part of WhatsApp groups of so many small business owners who are now selling stuff over WhatsApp, and I'm actually buying it. I never imagined doing that, right? For someone who subscribes to Amazon, someone who buys everything from Amazon, I never thought the supply chain shock would put me in a place where I would be like, oh, if I want to buy a basic, toaster, I would have to go locally to a shop or, speak to someone WhatsApp. And people are actually delivering these goods through, vehicles and through cars. So the reason I talk about these things is to give you a very clear indicator as to where we are heading, how things are changing, and how there is a rapid flux that we are in, right? These aren't things that are telling you that, hey, you know what, this is what's going to stay on forever. But it just means that, as you correctly pointed out, survival of the fittest, right? Everyone is changing, everyone is adapting or adopting technology to live and to survive in this COVID-19 landscape. Having said that, I think there are two ways in which businesses are looking at this. One is a matter of survival in order to pivot, and the other one is to actually look at online first rather than online also as a initiative. Because when you talk about online first, or when you talk about marketing, or when you talk about reaching out to a customer in today's day and age, digital being a precedence, digital being a preferred medium, contactless delivery and all those things, the way you actually develop your business model completely changes. And I think there is a clear-cut, I would say, mandate, whether you're a small business, whether you're a manufacturer, large manufacturer based in the United States, looking at, changing your supply chain from China to another country, or whether you are a small-time manufacturer in India. There is a clear-cut mandate to change the way we do business. And I think this is, as you correctly pointed out, this was probably one of the best ways to look at how evolution takes place, right? And this is what we are seeing now. And I think we are living in exciting times. There's going to be a change in the way people are going to do business, and it's going to stay on for a longer time, right? It's going to change the normal, right? The normalcy of doing business.
I'm absolutely with you, because vocal for local is trending, okay? And as you rightly said, digital first is the norm now, right? It's not that, okay, we have an online presence as well. People do start with digital first mindset. Arjit, what's your take? What's the impact you are witnessing to the business as such?
With COVID-19, what has impacted? Definitely, health has impacted severely, and so has the business. So most of the business, and now I'm not looking from a consumer side, but I'm looking from a B2B side of it. So where businesses are trying to control the cost, okay, and one area that comes into the purview is marketing, where you are again questioned about your expenses, okay, and how do you control this cost, okay. So that's one piece of it, right? Second piece is the trust, because while these things happened, and that happened very rapidly, lockdown and other immediate closures happened, so people start trusting the people who were nearby, the local kirana shop. So certain kind of trust which was actually given to large e-com players had shifted, and this is very interesting. Those guys whom you trusted for such a long time suddenly did not come up to you when you were required, and this is a very interesting scenario that we have been observing. The trust is shifting, right? Third thing, that from a technology point of view, what is happening is over confidence on cloud platform, digital payments, okay. So of late, if you see, a lot of people who were not relying on a Paytm or Google Pay have shifted to it because it's a contactless way of payment. So if you see that, it's a very interesting. So we are into a B2B selling, and we have large enterprises, insurance firms, banks, so who are predominantly an on-prem game. So they want everything to be set up on their premise and all these things. While we are saying that all the great things on AI and on machine learning can't be afforded on-prem, but it has to be on cloud, and they say, hey, we cannot move to cloud. And what happened? On 24th of March, everything got stuck. So all the BPOs had to move off and work at home. And now there was a huge demand on cloud solutions, on streaming solutions, on video-based solutions. So this is a very interesting thing what Dhaval has mentioned, that those technologies, I'm not saying that new technologies got created during lockdown. Okay, these technologies were waiting at your gates, but you were not letting them allow because there was no pressing demand to it. And now that these technologies has pervaded in your business, it will be very difficult to again throw them back and get into our on-premise and pre-COVID world. So these are the positive things that we see. Now, let me talk from a marketing stand, because being a marketing event, a marketing thrust has to be there. So what happened is that a lot of physical events got closed immediately, right? So the very famous mobile conference in Barcelona, and followed that we were also actually participating in some events in Dubai, which had to called off. So all those physical events disappeared, and what happened is a flurry of webinars. Okay, now people have to pay to go to this event to hear those speakers. Suddenly they are able to hear all the great speakers free of cost at their time, because most of the webinars are also recorded. So the knowledge is disseminating at a pace which was never there. And this is a great thing which is happening. Okay. Now another part is that from an investment, when I said about there will be clamped down on marketing investment. So because if customers are not buying, why you go and spend your marketing dollars for that reason? Okay. Mm-hmm. But what is switching is that yes, we do not spend too much money in acquire, because if you are online business, okay, fine, you can deliver, you have some customer base that you can serve. But say you're in a hotel or hospitality business, or in businesses which has seen a severe hit, so there's no point in buying more solutions or spending more on marketing. Okay, but what is counter happening is that this is also a great time to create your brand image, creating a goodwill, creating a channel relationship, which marketing was not focusing too much, because they were seeing that lead generation is my key. And every time the point was that what is your ROI? How much of lead is getting there? Qualified lead, how many you got it? Now it is a very interesting time where you run campaigns. Okay, you have to take a stand. Black Lives Matters. Okay, so if that is something philosophy you allow, so it is a time for you to create that brand, create the sensitiveness. Okay, if you are talking about vocal for local, so what kind of sensitiveness you are bringing among your customer base? Because when things evolve and we come out of this situation, these things will get ingrained. So that's where I am saying is the transformation happening as a marketing division. A lot of CMOs are here in this call will agree to this, that this is a fantastic time to spend on your brand and build your brand.
Absolutely. So Harsha, you manage enterprise as well as government sector both, right? What inputs or specifics can you share with respect to the current business scenario?
Let's first look at the consumer, right? Two primary shifts. The regular purchasing and buying as we know it has reduced dramatically. I'm sure everyone on this webinar here, their personal credit card bills every month have come down compared to what it used to be before the pandemic. But what has increased is the IT adoption. My mother has started ordering groceries through Big Basket. She doesn't anymore go to the grocery shop at home. So video calls have increased. This is a classic example where we ourselves are on a webinar, right? So the consumption of internet has gone up, cloud consumption has gone up, which it's already been spoken here. So traditional businesses or the business which existed earlier, they will have to look at what they are consuming, their consumption model, and the distribution models as well. What do they consume and how do they distribute? We need to, the businesses, without elaborating in too much because it's already been spoken, need to move into a more tech-friendly manner and get into maybe a pay-per-use or a cloud-driven model. See, after the initial explosion of the Chinese virus, that is the word I use, the Chinese virus. Most organizations now have done a reality check as to where they are right now and what's the road ahead. I think it took a couple of months to do a stock take, right? And they're kind of stabilized now, and they know they know the reality check. The markets are also fairly stable now, and it's nowhere close to what it was before the pandemic, but at least they're more stable. For the first time, most organizations have understood what is the change they need to expect, and what kind of tech spends or buying they need to do in future. There is a sense of stabilization, if not back to pre-COVID times. SMBs are still, I think, are going to cut their spending and buying, especially when it comes to technology. But the larger companies, I think, will continue to grow because they see this as an opportunity to grow, to acquire new talent, to set up their tech for the years to come. And when it comes to the government, as we see on the news every day, right, the role of the government has increased dramatically in these times. The intervention of government, right from large macro policies up to we getting locked in our house, the policies that have been implemented, the role of the government has been phenomenal. So I think IT buying with the government is going to continue to increase over the next few years, because this is a wake-up call for the entire world. We are living in unprecedented times when our fathers or our forefathers have not seen. So none of the governments were prepared for this. So governments are going to wake up now during this pandemic and even after that to ramp up on how to cope up with the pandemic if we get hit by it once more. Areas of safety and security, I think, will get ramped up severely because those areas have been threatened. Constant monitoring, citizen monitoring from a positive manner to check on citizen welfare is going to increase. Spends are going to increase. Healthcare is going to be a huge spend from the government sector, which was not the case earlier. More and more healthcare was getting privatized. We had large private players, but now government is going to take large calls on healthcare, and their spends on healthcare is going to increase.
Arijit, coming back to you, how do you see the business scenario and marketing expectations changing?
This is also time to create a formidable digital marketing capability. And if you look at marketing, there are two legs to it, the inbound and the outbound side of it, right? So this is an awesome time to build that muscle around your inbound capability, because inbound is something which takes time. It takes a lot of focus. And once it is built, then it delivers awesome results than outbound activities that companies will do. So what I see is that this is where companies are focusing. And even if you're in a business downturn, okay, I'm not saying that it is only for companies who are not able to do scale forward, but even in downturn, it is also a time to inform or educate prospective clients about solutions, about their challenges. It is also about how to empathize rather than push them to convert and sales. So this is what I am saying, is that the nudge marketing is evolving. Okay, some companies have been doing it earlier, and now it is also interesting time where you can create all these things, which either because of bandwidth or focus was missing. Okay, so behavioral sciences has been applied to marketing for a long time. Okay, but it had been somewhere limited to A/B campaigns. Okay, so now this is also a very good time to apply this kind of a behavioral science when you are applying to marketing, and it is just not from your sales funnel perspective. So these, I would say, let's see from some examples what I mean to say. So as you understand, work from home is becoming more or less a new normal. Okay, a lot of companies are coming upfront and saying that we will have 30%, 50% of our workforce working from home. Now, question is, what has marketing to do with this? So here, as marketer, we have to understand if my product or services has something to do to help and assist the remote workers, then definitely it is time to focus on it. Okay, or can I work and prepare some of our solutions, some of our offering, so that it caters far better to people who are working from home, because most of our solutions, products, CRM tools, whatever we talk about, was defined to work in an office setup. Okay, and it is not just moving to cloud has made you work from home solution. Work from home has other dimensions to look at it. So this is very interesting situation, which we were not focusing, that how can I enable this remote teams working and with high level of security, no data breach, okay, focus on the work, get it delivered. So these are all interesting things to look at when we are talking about focusing more from educating customers, informing them how the solutions can help and tap into this opportunity, right? This is not only from work from home. I'm just saying that work from home is one. So a lot of contactless business, which otherwise was a very touch and go feel kind of a business, is moving contactless. How do you evolve that contactless business so that you can manage with remote customers, remote teams, remote support agents? Okay, I will tell you an interesting example that we are working with a company which provides plumbing services. Okay, now plumbing service you cannot do through software. You have to have somebody to do the plumbing work, right? Now they are saying that let us do a DIY solution. That means I will do a video call with you and I can help you remotely look at your pipe fitting, understand what is the problem, ship you the component, and then explain you how to fit it. So it is safe. As an end user, I do not want somebody to come walk into my home, but I need this problem to be solved. Okay, so how can I do this? Now there's a lot of technology integration which is going to happen to make it successful. But this was never the need of the hour. Nobody wants to do this DIY in our country. No? DIY is a very common thing in Western world. Okay, so you know the IKEA model. Okay, so you do not go and say that I know. So you make it for yourself, right? Now this is a transformation, and which is a huge opportunity getting created. Okay, the other example I would say, which you can reflect it from the standard adage which says be where your customers are. Okay, so it's becoming more relevant in this time. So what we are talking about, the evolving expectations across all touch points needs to be unified, right? So here what I'm talking about, omnichannel marketing. So this is another less invested space where marketing has not invested, or the business has not invested too much. But now what is happening is that you need to have an omni-channel approach to your marketing. That means your person or whoever is receiving a Twitter feed should be able to call back to the customer, and you should know the customer journey, right? So this is a very interesting and very relevant solution in this time. And this is also something which will carry forward even post-COVID, where people will appreciate the fact that you don't care which channel you are talking with. What is your touch point? You can call to the company, or you can text to the company, or you can do a Facebook or WhatsApp message to the company. You don't care. Okay, what you want to have a consistent customer experience. They should not say, but I don't know how to handle this. Because if you see, the world was in more of a multi-channel, disjointed kind of a organization, where the customer care and the marketing team were not connected, right? Disjointed. So when you get into an omnichannel environment where all the customer touch points are getting integrated on a single platform, and you can view all the interactions that a customer has, see the power that you are giving to the front desk guys now. Okay, they are very empowered. You will experience in the past when you are calling to your telecom provider and you want to change something, correct? And it did not happen. Next time you're trying to call or you're trying to chat with that guy, he is giving you that surprising look or a call. Can you tell me what is your problem? And you say, oh my God, I just told it last time. Again, I have to narrate it, right?
Yeah.
But we feel that this agent is not good. But what is not good is the implementation of this solution, which was in a multi-channel world. You have a telephone and you have a CRM, and then you call a chat, and then it has a different CRM. So I'm not getting into the details of it. What I am saying is that this is a very interesting situation, and companies have to relook at these kind of opportunities getting created rather than panicking and wondering that this crisis will kill us and this is all over. So this is also another opportunity to explore this kind of possibilities. And some companies are definitely doing it, as we see. And these are the companies which will go far smarter, far wiser after this crisis.
Harsha, what sort of modifications you had to do with respect to, strategic alignment or change in gears as far as marketing is concerned?
Some realignment is needed in these times as far as marketing is concerned, to have business continuity, to have marketing continuity, to stay in touch with customers, right? So some top of the mind things that strategic or not, but some must do things is the way I see it for marketing. I think first, stay in touch with your customers and partners through whatever platforms available, digital. I think the platform, the means, I think are secondary, but ensure that you stay in touch with customers. I think we sometimes might get lost in our own world of the current situation and trying to find the perfect answer, and might lose focus of the customer. So stay in touch with the customer. We reached out to all the customers within our database to communicate that, hey, look, we as an organization, we are there. Our business is continuing. We're going to continue to support you. Don't worry. As far as our relationship is concerned, we're good to go as before. So that sense of faith, the belief, that communication is important to the customer. So keep the conversation going. Then stay agile and adjust to the needs of the customer. The customer is obviously going through multiple challenges. Sorry, I keep coming back to the customer because I think I see the customer at the center of everything. I mean, the more customer-centric we are than inward-looking, I think the better it is for the business. So stay agile and adjust to the needs of the customer. Customer is going through his own business challenges, and we need to understand by listening to him as to what challenges they're having, and we need to be agile enough because these are unprecedented times where what can we do to help the customer from our side of the world, from our technology or our business solution that we're providing. It could not be the perfect fit, or it might not fit our exact solution, but from what we've done historically, but if it means you have to change a few things, we should change a few things to suit the customer. I do some consulting work for a few startups, and some of the startups, only because we've hit these interesting times in the last 2 to 3 months, have completely pivoted their business model, like, upward down. Like, it's not a small shift, it is a complete paradigm shift. I mean, that is real agility. While larger enterprises, organizations may not be able to do that, in a smaller micro level, when it comes to specific customers, we should be able to tweak our offerings. Needless to say, I'm saying the obvious, but digital is the way to go. So I think every organization should increase their online presence through all the social media platforms, through through blogs or through webinars or whatever. But the pivot has to happen. The selling model has to go towards an online way. One more obvious statement is improve your SEO. A lot of organizations will have to go back to the website, look at every aspect of SEO, hire maybe an SEO expert and work on SEO specifically. I mean, we'll be surprised to see how many companies have not, got this done in the last 2 to 3 months. Get on top of the latest marketing techniques as a marketeer, right? When you want to reach out to customers. This be it IP targeting, you want to do geofencing, targeting specific personas or designations or a specific industry. We recently did a campaign targeting IP address of a specific large bank in India. Won't call out the bank, but the target was only one bank. We target their IP address only with very curated messaging only for that particular bank. So COVID or not, I think it's a great technique. Might not be too relevant in the COVID times, but sharpening your digital marketing skill, I think the time is now. While it's been said for a long point of time, I think this is the time to really, really act on it. Stay on top of your metrics. Digital is so much more measurable. It is so much more quantifiable. This is very essential because previously successful marketing activities, marketing campaigns might be a massive flop or completely irrelevant in today's world. The way we used to reach out to a CIO or a CEO is not the same anymore. We can't waltz into their office and say hello to them. We can't meet them in an event or on a round table. So do a reality check on how useful the previous campaigns are and make sure everything is data driven.
Absolutely. And I think yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks. So a repetition of what I've said earlier, right? Adapt your offerings to the current circumstance. Change your offerings to the customer. Like, I'm not saying change your complete solution offering, but the way you're offering it to the customer, right? Maybe you need to give more free trial now for the customer to use your product or your solution. More demos, move into a consumption model, like Dhaval was saying earlier in a conversation today, right? Get into a pay-per-use model. And I think the last point I want to emphasize is help your customer in this time of crisis. And you genuinely try to help your customer. This could be outside your purview of what you're trying to sell. But if it means a phone call to connect your customer with somebody else who can actually provide the solution, do it. It means you don't make the money, but somebody else is going to make the money. But as long as your customer benefits from it, I think you should do it, because the customer is a smart man today, right? He sees the value of what you do now in the times of pandemic. So giving that helping hand, a genuine helping hand, not with a cloak of helping hand where you want a profit in that. A genuine helping hand in these times, I think will go a long way in building a long-lasting relationship.
That's true. Customers, just like any other human being, would be able to understand as to how much genuine you are in your approach or interest. Dhaval, coming back to you, where do you see marketing is heading towards? This looks like more of a philosophical question, but I'll say that the 4 Ps are passé now, right? What would be the new normal?
4 Ps are passé, and I think I don't know if anyone follows Kotler and the revised editions. What he did was he basically revised it from 4 Ps. He added people, processes, and programs. I think that's exactly where we are at right now, right? And I think he actually hit the nail in the head when he talked about it, because he could probably envision what we couldn't as digital marketers, right? I mean, a lot of digital marketers, we are so focused on looking at channels and fixing things and getting our website right and rankings, which is 100% right? I think obviously that's basic. We need to do that. There's no question about it. But in order to be able to deliver value on these channels, the first and foremost important thing is that we need the right processes and we need to understand people. And in order to do this, according to me, we need to shift our focus from saying that, hey, you know what, we are running a marketing campaign, to saying that here's our marketing program, right? Now, let me tell you in my head what I mean when I say that. This is not the a textbook definition that I'm talking about. But when we talk about a marketing campaign, we talk about very definitive goals. We talk about a definitive time frame within which we need to achieve those goals, whether they are revenue goals or unique users that we want to acquire on your website or whatever you have. But when you talk about program management, you're talking about far broader goals in terms of what is the end objective of your business, right? So when we talk about campaign management and when we talk about program management, we are talking about two very different things. And the moment we talk about program management, we are talking about the far more softer aspects of your business, far more involved aspects, right? From looking at what are your employees doing, how you are implementing and deploying your service, all the way to how you're taking care of customer service. It's not just saying that you sold a product, right? It's not just the sales part or the outreach part of it. Because here we are talking more intrinsically of doing agile work, right? So imagine a small SaaS provider working with HR heads looking at payroll, right? Payroll is going to change completely with work from home coming in, with allowances changing, with people, with some people even moving now to smaller cities and working from there. Salary structures are going to change. Now imagine, in order to make that small pivot in your SaaS platform, in order to update that or add that programming code, everyone's adopting Agile, right? Even largest companies, I'm sure, Harsha will agree, NetApp adopts Agile in a lot of processes that they do. Arijit might have seen that happening with work that he does with IT clients. While that conversation has always been about what's happening at the back end, that, hey, you know what, let's roll out this code, let's get it on Git, let's get our DevOps team and our DataOps team and testing and blah, 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 updated on the cloud. That conversation is going to shift even to marketing processes, right? Here's a release, here's an update. We need to go to market immediately. We need to capture the market. We need to let our users know that now we can manage payroll, as per the new accounting standard, with what the new budget came in and the new rules that came in. Now, in order to update that, we're going to have to be able to rapidly reach the customer and manage them well. And this can only happen when you have such processes in place. And when you think of it as a program which is more continual and not definitive, or I would say finite in nature, right? So I think that's one very big mindset change, rather than saying that there's a departmental change, or rather than saying that there is a change in the way, with the kind of people we are hiring. I think it's far to do with the mindset change. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is, people, right? I think what Harsha and Arijit have been talking about, it continually echoed to me that how is it that this is going to change the way employees approach marketing? How is it that this has changed the way customers, consume this new product or new service or your existing product or service? Now, let me give you a very simple example. I'm currently talking to a healthcare firm, which is a large chain of gyms, right? Gymnasiums. And as you know, they're going through, it's a total wipeout. That industry has wiped out completely, right? When we talk about people and when I'm conversing with them and trying to understand what processes they have, their VP has become redundant, right? The person who was able to manage gymnasiums, the person who was great at operations, great at sales and marketing, able to put together promotions from time to time in order to increase sales during Diwali or whatever, right? It's gone, right? That person is redundant. There are certain skill sets that the person can bring to the table, but there is a lot that he or she that brought to the table was useful pre-COVID, but it's completely not useful, completely useless now, right? I'm not saying that the person is useless. I'm saying the experience and whatever work that has been done till now, that's gone out the window, right? Because now the gyms are shut. Now they want to go completely online, right? Going online for a gym is very, 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 very challenging, right? Imagine the kind of people that you hired, the guys who are good at doing one-on-one training, who are able to motivate you, right? Who are able to tell you, hey, you know what, you can do another 2 sets of this, weightlifting or whatever you're doing. And now the same person is required to be online and is required to coach one-on-one or one-to-many in probably a similar environment as this one. It's very, very challenging, right? Let me give you another example. I have been, faculty for executive MBA students for Stratford University, and I had actually signed up, and I was to start. I was to actually deliver 2 programs on leadership as well as on entrepreneurship, right? 2 areas very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about it, right? I get into a room, I'm energized, I'm trying to talk to them, I get everyone engaged, and it's great, right? Because it's an MBA lecture. It's supposed to be 2-way. It's supposed to be a lot of engagement, contributions coming in from all sides. But now suddenly I've been put in front of a laptop and I've been told, hey, you know what? Now your classes are not 4 hours, it's just 2 hours. Do whatever you need to do, but you need to complete the curriculum and you need to do it, right? So now I'm scratching my head and I'm wondering, Baba, how will I engage with these guys, right? How do I get them excited the way I get them excited within a classroom? And you won't believe it. It was painful, right? I would have like 20 slides on my presentation, and now I had 60 slides for every class. And the 20 slides was for a 4-hour lecture, right? Because every slide was more of a talking point and a jump starter or a thought starter to actually engage and get contributions in and then putting a framework together. But now it was more delivery of content. So processes needed to be changed, right? Suddenly Moodle, if you know, Moodle is a great LMS. Moodle came at the center of it and everyone was uploading assignments on Moodle. It wasn't happening before that, right? Suddenly my conversations with them became more about pre-reading. My conversations with them became more about doing a presentation every week, right? Doing it on a round-robin fashion. The point I'm trying to make is that the people involved, the IT team suddenly became important. The student coordinator team became important. It was not just about scheduling lectures. It was about ensuring that, the delivery happens on time, ensuring that the recording is uploaded, the people who missed out could actually see it. So everything overnight changed. Now, when we talk about this in context of marketing, let me give you another example in extension to this. That same university has been following up with me for the last 3-4 days, asking me to put up a video of what are the kind of things we do and how do we teach online, because they want to use that as a marketing content to their corporates and to their clients, right? So you can see how everything shifted, right? And literally this happened overnight for me. So the good thing is I still make the same amount of money teaching that. But the bad thing is that I need to reinvent myself. I need to relook at the way I present myself, right? I could walk into the door, I could walk into a room and be charismatic and, be talking about a lot of different concepts. But now when you're constraining me to a screen, user experience becomes extremely important. So let me now go back to the gym example. The conversation that I'm having with those guys is about user experience. I'm saying, hey, you know what? You guys had a service offline. Now we are putting it online. It's not about putting your service offline to online. You can't simply replicate your product online. You need to give far more value, because now your competitive landscape has completely changed. You are competing with guys like Goki, you're competing with guys like Curefit, you're competing with guys who are, deep pocketed in terms of VC funding. What is it that you're going to bring in terms of value for the customer compared to you being, amazing at certification, amazing at training, amazing at, doing body transformation? How are you going to bring it online? So I think this again goes back to the 3 Ps: people, processes, and program management. And the guys who can do this, in my opinion, in the most agile manner, with, I would say, in an incremental manner, but and see success in that, are going to be able to survive. It's interesting to see, what Harsha said, that larger organizations may find it difficult to pivot compared to a smaller organization. But I also feel that sometimes larger organizations have a lot in place in terms of infra. They have that wherewithal to put IT in place, to get infra in place, to get, processes in place, and they have more manpower they probably have more manpower to actually build this out and, go to market. But it obviously depends on the industry. But I think it's very interesting to see what's happening in this landscape. You are seeing, you're seeing smaller players locally who are able to give you value, who are able to deliver things, to your home on time, compared to the biggies like Amazon, whose supply chain went into a complete system shock, right? When the lockdown happened. So a lot of flux happening here. But to actually close this piece, I would say, programs, people, processes, with a very agile way of implementing this and making use of technology, not just as an enablement tool, but as a tool that can automate your marketing, reduce your costs, and so on and so forth.
Harsha, coming back to you, what do you see as the future of marketing office, or how the CMO role is evolving?
Virus has acted as a catalyst, which I think will permanently change marketing as we know it today. So I think in these times, the times we're going through, it is natural for any CEO to go to a CMO and ask, how can you contribute in these times? So CEOs are looking at their sales and marketing leaders to work together and expect consistent and aligned results from both of them without finger pointing. Because that's a classic paradigm, right? Like sales and marketing are permanently at loggerheads. So without finger pointing, the CEO, I think, now expects that we work together and deliver consistent, aligned results. So marketing leaders, I think now the CMO should shift the conversation away from lead volume or the lead quality, which we guys tend to go towards more often than not. And when was the last time when sales teams have ever been happy with both of them, be it the quality or the volume of lead? So I think we should move away from the conversation and move towards a measurable business impact of what we can deliver from the programs that we run as marketing. I think that is the direction what CMOs need to look. And in doing so, right, marketing will have a healthier and a strategic conversation with the other CXOs within the organization. Now you'll have equal stake at the table, on the CEO's table. And this also helps us defend our budget very strongly, because marketing is always guilty of spending money. So if we bring in a revenue contribution, right, I think that is a solution. If marketing can bring in a revenue contribution to the table, the CMO's stand on the CEO's table will be much stronger. And the way I think to go about doing this, I think there are just a few critical steps, right? I think one critical thing is marketing needs to align strongly with its stakeholders. I think most of us, we should be honest and agree that sometimes marketing is guilty of being in its beautiful ivory tower and preaching to the rest of the organization as to how marketing needs to go about doing things. So I think a stronger alignment with sales and a stronger alignment with finance, the CFO, I think is the way ahead. And marketing needs to do a lot of introspection, right? The CMO of the future now going ahead, I think needs to do a lot of introspection. He or she needs to reassess what is the very foundation of marketing. What kind of talent do we have in marketing? We have hired the so-called talent based on the predefined concepts of marketing which have been existent since, Kotler early days, that's prehistoric days as far as marketing is concerned, right? So what kind of talent do we have in-house? That I think needs to be questioned. And like Dhaval said, what processes do we have in-house as marketing? Marketing processes have to be severely relooked, because these processes are defined decades back. What contributes to a lead? Is it do we just need to look at the buying intent? Do we need to look at his behavior, his interest in the organization, the engagement a customer has with the organization? So our process need to be questioned, and our systems, the tools that we're using, the CRM tools, what is the level of integration with AI? Are the AI capable to take smart, mature decisions as to what actually is a lead? Which customers are actually looking at us? So these are some of the things we need to look at. And the last is data. Data is omnipresent. Stronger data-driven objective or direction. And then I think marketing needs to be a little more bolder than what we are. We need to experiment more. Experiment more with our approaches to the customer. Yeah. So I think marketing being braver and bolder, committing to a revenue contribution to the organization is the way ahead for the CMO.
Dhaval, in continuation of this thread, would you like to share some insights, take us to Marketing X.0?
I would like to answer this question in probably two ways, right? One is marketing channels and the approach that we take, whether it's inbound, outreach, or whatever that is. And the second is the technology side of it, right? While it's very easy to probably say that we need to go digital, we have to be cognizant of the fact that digital is not the magic pill, right? And I say this time and again when I'm having conversations with CEOs that there's this thought that when you go digital, it just has to happen magically, right? Because it's online, but it's not. The first most important thing that we need to realize is the consumer is consuming more content more than ever, right? Whether you're talking about a B2B stakeholder who's thinking about who's going to be the next cloud platform where he will be deploying his new application, or whether you're talking about a small business owner who's thinking about building his new website or building his social media marketing. They're very, very they're competing for attention, right? And getting attention today is not easy, especially in the binge watching lifestyle that we are living in, right? So in order to do this, you have to be interesting. I mean, it's very, very simple and fundamental. You can't be a business owner. You can't be an organization that's not interesting to the end customer or even to your B2B stakeholder, right? Whatever it is that you are selling might be a fantastic product, right? It might be the top of the line product at the best price available. But if you can't distinguish yourself in the marketplace, if you cannot drive attention to these consumers, you are dead, right? The times when you could probably, go to Madison Square and, buy off, all the, buy off all the hoardings there and get all the attention are over, right? No one really steps out. No one really cares, what's there out there. People are looking at their screens. And let me tell you, this has been happening since before COVID, right? But it's just that it's an easier pitch. It's an easier conversation to have right now with CXOs because they actually believe it, right? Because physically they can see these things happening. But the reality is, the mind space of any consumer has always been on this small little device that we have been keeping in our pockets. So, what is it that we are doing to be interesting as marketers is the big question we need to ask ourselves. What is the value addition we are doing, and whether we are able to communicate that in an interesting manner, right? Whether it's in form of video, whether it's an AR experience, whether it's virtual reality. If you are talking about, a small business owner, whether it's even just a WhatsApp message that you are sending out, how exciting is that WhatsApp message, right? You get hundreds of WhatsApp messages in a day. You're a part of, at least a dozen groups, right? Minimum. Yeah. And you miss out on messages that are not interesting, right? And if you have this tendency, if that message is coming from this guy, it has to be, unworthy of listening to or reading. So in the same way, brands need to think of themselves, right? Now, you are going to vie for attention from these consumers who are addicted to their screen. Are you going to be interesting enough? And I think that's when what Arijit mentioned was perfect. That it's the best time now to build your story, to think about inbound marketing. People know what they want. People are educated and are aware of what their needs are. but you need to tell them whether you are the right fit for them, right? As a company, as an organization, and how you are going to deliver that message to them is going to be very, very important, right? So the conversation shifts from saying that, hey, you know what? I got X number of leads or X number of qualified leads, to saying that I got X number of people engaged with me and my bounce rate reduced because I saw that there were more than 15 minutes spent on this article or 15 minutes spent overall on the website after they access this article. Like Anand, I'm sure you might be tracking those metrics on your website as well, right? You put up an article which is around COVID-19, or you put up an article which is around a very, very topical, interesting topic, and then people who search on SEO, they go to that article, and then how many other articles are they going to, right, from there? And I actually use a metric to measure that, right? It's called enthusiasm, right? What's the number of pages that he accessed after having accessed that page that he actually landed on? So I think these metrics are going to be very, very important. This approach to marketing is going to be very important. And for this, you're going to need a lot more creative people in your space, and you're not going to just look at domain experts, right? So this actually is very interesting. You are working in an IT environment. Now, let me tell you something very candidly, since we are on this. I was having a conversation. I come from a digital marketing consumer behavior background. I started Smart Home NX, which is a IoT company, right? So we basically do IoT solutioning for, end customers, for offices, and, taking cue from what Arijit was saying, we exploited the WFH opportunity and we started looking at doing home offices, right? And we did quite a few of them in Bombay, where we essentially enabled them going smart with, Alexa and with automated lighting, because now they are at home, having several different scenes based on who's sitting there. The same office is being used by the husband and wife at different times. So how do you essentially build something around, a customizable home office environment? Now, if you look at that, look at how we evolved as marketers, how we looked at content, how we looked at engaging with these people. The conversation was more so about what is the value we are able to provide to them, not just as implementation providers or not just as IT guys, but as lifestyle guys, right? So they did not choose us because we were the best at technology. They chose us because we understood the context of their problem really well. Now, taking this 2 steps forward, I had a conversation with an IT firm, and we looked at essentially building a industrial IoT platform for the American manufacturing base. And the conversation went in a very, very weird direction, because as someone who comes from a digital marketing background, they were sort of surprised how I was able to understand the value over there in that context in the industrial side, because I don't come from an IT background. I don't have any background whatsoever in digital transformation. And despite that, I have been able to, bring a perspective. And I think that sort of changes the way you recruit. That sort of changes the way you, look at bringing in talent on board. And that sort of tells you that, hey, you know what? Maybe the Googles and the Microsofts of the world are right when they say that degrees matter less than what value you can bring to the table. And that's the thing that we are going towards, right? Skill set driven economy rather than a degree or an education driven economy, right? So if you look at that, I think that also applies to marketing, right? Marketers can come from any sphere. Marketers can add value to any process of your business, not because they have channel expertise, but they are able to bring that perspective of storytelling and understanding of consumer behavior. So that's one side of it. Let's talk about automation and let's talk about technology, right? There are things that businesses and enterprises are going to do for operational efficiency, right? And let's not kid ourselves. It's going to happen, right? COVID-19 is here. It's here to stay for some time. Our P&L and our books are not going to be seeing any, green shoots or, great bell curves going up anytime soon, right? And we have all accepted that. I think whether you're a large company or a small company, we have accepted it, right? But investments in technology, but when it comes to, looking at automation, when it comes to looking at operational efficiency, there are certain things which we will be adopting in a very ruthless manner, right? Small businesses are already laying off marketers. So small businesses are saying, I don't need a sales guy. I can myself sit on a Zoom call. I can talk to my client. Why do I need a sales guy? Right? It's happening. It's happening. It's happened with my friend's venture. With larger companies, a lot of CMOs are getting pay cuts. All of that is already happening. Now, to say that, hey, you know what, we will transition into a automated or a marketing technology process driven company is frankly absurd. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take investment there too. So it's a transition where there will be a balance of both. In my opinion, if you are a marketer and if you are able to bring a data driven perspective, as Harsha had pointed out, and if you're able to take that one step higher, and let's say you have talent in terms of data analytics, you have talent in terms of database marketing, you have talent in terms of CRM management, you have talent in terms of loyalty. I think all these skill sets and all these initiatives will take a far higher precedence compared to saying that I am the guy who can get you on the first page of Google. I think that's one starting point. I'm not saying that's not required. That's basic. Those are vanity metrics that we need to achieve. I mean, I do that for a living. Same for social media marketing. That's engagement. All of that is a given. But I think that coupled with the data mindset that you can bring to the table is going to determine whether you will succeed in the long run, right? Short run, everyone's going to be making sacrifices. Everyone's going to be doing things that may or may not work for them. Everyone's going to have an appetite to be able to do it, and everyone's going to have a budget for it. But in the long run, this is what will determine how successful you are. And I personally envision far more niche players coming into the market. So imagine you are a Kirana wala, right? Now you have apps which allow you to, which one's that? Khata, right? E-Khata or Khata book. There is an app that tells you, for a retailer, he can keep a log of all the things that are happening, right? Same way, I can envision that, smaller niche players will come up in delivery, right? Like someone who is having a business locally wants a hyperlocal delivery setup over here, he can just subscribe to that guy, and the hyperlocal delivery platform will take care of everything, right from their online presence all the way to marketing activities, all of that, right? Then the conversation becomes about how do you differentiate, right? That's when storytelling comes into play. So on one side, you will see a lot more MarTech and marketing automation platforms come into play in niche segments, whether it's IT, ITES, whether it's retail, whether it's whatever it is, right? And those guys will evolve, right? Retail guys who are selling POS will go far beyond POS. They'll say, EPOS is fine, let's look at data, right? And people will adopt that faster. And because supply will increase, cost will decrease, right? There'll be more people to buy it. And on the other end, there'll be this huge stream of creative guys who will be entering the industry, whether it's in marketing departments, whether it's CEOs who are suddenly saying, let me get into this retail space, or whoever that is. And I think the guys who will succeed are the guys who will be able to understand data and who will be able to leverage this technology to the max, right?
Ajit, a very quick one, rather, can you do a crystal ball gazing, can you be the crystal ball reader today and guide us to what sort of demands would come from business to the marketing team so that we can start preparing from today?
If you look at a hindsight, that when was the last crisis that we faced or a particular country faced? So what you will study, analyze and figure it out that what did the crisis did actually, that it paced rapidly the evolution which was happening actually. But because of the crisis and when the business or the country or the nation is coming out of that crisis, those things gets deployed faster. Okay. So this is so you see right from the early crises of World War, and then the various difficulties like 9/11. A lot of things has happened across humankind. And what has happened is that certain things which was slow in terms of its adoption got rapidly adopted. Okay. Now, if you look at this pandemic and what is it creating actually? Okay, we know what is creating right now. But if you look at a little bit on the horizon, what you will see that this is going to create a lot of new things. For example, we are talking about deglobalization. Okay. The supply chain is getting redefined one more time. Okay. So a lot of things which was taken for granted, people were saying that globalization is an irreversible model. You cannot change it. And now we are seeing, right? So Joe Biden is saying, buy America. Okay. So now this kind of thought processes are getting into most of the countries. So if I look at a crystal ball and say, what will happen? Okay. So what I am saying is that this kind of automation, which was coming in the various spheres of life, will get heavily inducted into the marketing space as well. Okay, so we have seen as a company we have been delivering a lot of automation solutions like bots. So we had voice bots, we have chat bots, which are now what is happening is that these are getting, say for example, today with COVID-19, a lot of the announcement that you hear is actually a bot speaking to you. Okay. So far, people are saying, hey, how will human relate to a machine and communicate with a machine? Machine does not have empathy. We cannot do it. Now, what we are saying that, yes, we can build empathy in the machine as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see that the machine is becoming more and more sensitive. So like UX, so, user experience. Earlier user experience was nobody cared. You make a text box and you enter, nobody cared. And then came the mobile app generation, and everybody talked about how nice the UX is, and you charge a premium just because of the UX. Okay. Now what is evolving is the VX, voice experience. That means when you are talking to the machine, it is not in a very robotic way. It is becoming more and more conversational.
Sure.
That means the people will also feel very charmed by that. So if you have seen the model of Sophia, which is a humanoid, and which is actually speaking and winking also at times, okay? So making you feel almost that you are talking to a human, okay? So this is what we are seeing is going to slowly get into our skin, that this kind of automation, when you are doing your marketing, right, you can build all this kind of solutions, so that you can easily and 24/7 and scale at a scale. You don't need to have so many outbound callers to make the phone calls now, or making outbound campaigns. You have a very well-crafted voice bot, and it can be segmented. So if it is talking to a senior citizen, it can talk in a certain way. Compared to a millennial, it can speak to. So all these things I would see is little bit I am doing a crystal ball, because this is all evolving as I'm speaking. Okay.
Yeah.
The other side I would see is like deep learning, marketing analytics. Okay. So social listening has also already come in, as we are saying. A lot of companies have implemented social listening, but then what we have not done, more of a semantic analysis. That means the person is speaking, or the person is chatting, or the person is replying to email. There is a lot of semantics left, which shows that whether you will be a customer, whether you will be a churn, whether you will drop out at one point of time. Okay. So these are going to be built into the system. So this kind of deep learning bolted on top of all your marketing campaigns will give you far more ROI on the investment that you are going to do. It will not be becoming very obvious and very salesy kind of thing. Like today you get a call, sir, would you like to take an insurance? And you say, bang, no, I don't want. So you get so much of emails. So because these are not very well thought of, okay? Because technology is not that level today, okay? So Absolutely. Today you can at best do a Facebook campaign looking at some kind of demography and say, okay, I will target with them. But can I use a deep learning mechanism and look at large data sets and see what kind of behavior people do when they make a buying decision rather than when they are about to drop out? So looking all this conversation and this kind of predictiveness can be built onto your platform, which becomes far more intelligent than what is today. And that's, I would say, a great gift of this pandemic to the world of automation and the world of marketing, that people would have stuck with their old way of doing the things and say, no, boss, this is very expensive, we will not implement these things today. Whereas tech firms are also trying to find out how to do it at a lower cost so that adoption starts happening. So people, now what we are seeing is, okay, that if it's a machine which is calling and asking for your help in terms of a pandemic, in this kind of COVID situation, I don't feel very uncomfortable to talk to you, machine. So this is getting evolved, right? And then this kind of technologies, if this is just on the, I would say on the brink to come in front, and people will get adopted. And that's what I would see is kind of a transformation that business will expect the marketing team to also apply.
The KRAs are going to change, wherein marketers would be asked as to, what sort of predictive analysis you did, and why couldn't you capture this customer shift or drift or whatever, right? So a lot of exciting times ahead. So Well, from the scientific theory of evolution to crystal ball gazing, it has been extremely enriching discussion today with such eminent panelists. We all understand and acknowledge the need to adapt, but at times are unaware as to what should be the change or how the change should be brought. Further, the difference between survival and growth is what we tried to capture as well, not literally through crystal ball gazing, but anticipating the future trend and preparing for that in advance. Thanks again for your esteemed presence. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.